Okay. And we're back from the break. Rob Ladd.
That was great. That was... we had kebabs.
Yeah. There was this video of Jeff Porcaro, and he, I think the story was that they went out to get Mexican food, and he had like indigestion.
That's the one where he shows how to do the
Rosanna?
the shuffle.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's like sort of
he's got
swallowing.
heartburn.
It's like give the guy a Tic Tac or a Tums or something. But I mean, that's it. That is that's the one you need. I don't care what anybody else says. He breaks it down, and it's perfect.
It is.
And once I saw that, I was able to do it. And before I saw that, I couldn't do it at all.
Yeah. So let's talk about auditions. You know, you talked a little bit about how it kind of works out there, introductions and stuff. But cattle call auditions, is that a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're cattle calls.
And what does that mean for people who
that
are
means
not farmers?
They
ranchers.
That's a situation where the artist may not have or they don't have any names in mind, so they just call everyone.
Yeah.
And there's usually a guy, now I can't remember this guy's name, but there was a guy who would book cattle calls, and everybody would go down. I'd see the same guys at all of them. Yeah. I don't think I ever got any of the gigs. One of them was for Alanis's touring band.
Okay, right.
And Taylor was there for that. I remember I had known Taylor, or he was playing with this really great singer from Canada named Sass Jordan.
Taylor Hawkins.
Yeah, Taylor Hawkins.
Yeah.
And no, that wasn't an Alanis audition. I don't know what the audition was so that I saw Taylor.
Is he Canadian? Was he Canadian?
I don't know.
Okay.
And I didn't audition for Alanis's band. That's how I know I didn't see Taylor there that time, because I never went. I didn't go down for that cattle call, but it was one of them.
Yeah.
And you would, like I said, you would see the same guys every time, and you know, you kind of have to have a strategy for those things. Sure, I always wanted to go last. I don't know if that was a good idea or not.
Yeah. And
I always planned to be the loudest.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I felt like I was pretty good at playing loud back then. I mean, I played as well loud as probably better loud than I did not loud.
Yeah.
And my theory was they'll remember the loudest guy.
Yeah.
And they might remember the last guy.
First and last guy. It's sort of like the beginning of the song and the ending of the song.
Yeah. Yeah.
What happens in the middle? I kind of forgot. Especially if it's long.
As long as you end, if you all end together, you're the tightest band up there.
Exactly. It's the last thing.
But yeah, I might have gotten a few of those gigs, but a cattle call is usually a gig that you barely want anyway. It'd be like something like $450 a week.
Yeah.
Sharing hotel rooms if they even have hotel rooms. Yeah. Crappy bus if they even have a bus. Mm-hmm. But there are a lot of those. They're called baby bands, which means that it's maybe their first record or their first pre-record tour.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it was young women who, because like dudes back then especially have a band.
Yeah.
But young women are singers, singer-songwriters, and so they haven't put a band together yet.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
So I was fortunate to play with a lot of very talented women, including Alanis and a lot of other ones, and both for recording and for touring, and it's great. But yeah, that was as a guy who wanted to be a player, and I wasn't going to get called to play with Steely Dan, so I was getting to play with these singer-songwriter types.
Yeah, I was thinking about this too in preparation. Do you? And I'm not saying this is right, but like sometimes it's a boys' club. You're in a van with a bunch of guys, right, riding around. Did you have to sort of change your? Can I say that? Can I talk about around female artists? Do you know what I mean? Like, did that? It was just like this is the job. It's not. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
I totally know what you're saying. I don't. So I played in Sue Hoff's band for a while. We did a long summer tour and then some other stuff, and she was one of the. You'd have to eat your Wheaties if you were going to keep up with potty mouth.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So then but until somebody starts cussing, you don't know, like there's a...
Right.
I guess that's true with anybody.
It's true with a lot of the boys that you're out with too.
Yeah,
that's
true.
You do, I mean, that's part of the having your shit together. Can I say shit?
Oh, yeah, we've been cussing freely on this.
Oh, thank God.
There's some words, the George Carlin words, I don't even know if that one's on there. Do you remember those words you can't say on television? Yeah, that's one. That'll probably be...
All right, because that is a favorite word of mine. But
is it?
Yeah, I like it. I know a lot of people don't, but that's one of the things I like about it.
Well, it's strong. Exactly. Yeah, it's strong.
Baby, when I think about you, I think about love. And darling, when I do without you, I do without love. And if I had those golden dreams of my yesterday, I would wrap you in the heavens, feel like dying all the way, feel like making, feel like making love, feel like making love, feel like making love, making love to
Fitting in is part of the job. Like
Yeah.
the difference between being the roofer analogy that I made before is like you don't move into the house when you're a roofer, but if you're playing on a tour, especially, they want to know that you can play and you can learn the songs and you can follow the direction and change your style as necessary,
Yeah.
whatever it is, all the things that involve playing, but also that you bathe regularly, that
Yeah.
you don't snore, that
Yeah.
you don't get drunk, all of these things it's like you have to, and that's another thing that follows you around, right? So
Reputation.
one of the things is people knew that I kept to myself.
Yeah.
I kept my stuff together, and I didn't, I'm not a drunk,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's the hang because, what is it, 2 or 3 hours on stage, and then
The rest of the time you're a truck driver.
yeah, exactly.
Or your cargo, actually.
Right. That's going back to driving. It's always going to be somebody's job to drive, and early on, before you have a driver, it's you might actually do the gig and then drive, or your sound man like Mike. I don't know if Mike drove, but you know what I mean. So
Mike was a passenger.
Was he?
He was the best passenger seat. He would keep you awake all night with stories.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
That's a very important
perfect.
job.
Me and Mike were the late night team.
Okay. This is Mike Beard from
What up,
Pressure
Mike?
Boys.
He's watching.
Yeah, he is definitely watching. What was I going to say? Yeah, that was so I'd either drive or I would be the passenger. Same thing because of that. I think it goes back to that trust thing. Like I could not fall asleep, and like I kept waking up thinking because I was thinking about Steve, and Johnny Quest, and it just was always in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and when you're on a bus for months, weeks at a time, you actually have to sleep on it, and
Yeah.
it's more comfortable than being in a van, obviously, but still, every time it goes like this, you're like,
What happened?
is he falling asleep right now?
I know, even though that they are trained professionals and that's their job, but
and
still,
they're taking a lot of speed.
well, they drive overnight, right? You
Right.
finish the gig, and then how does that? You break down. Then you drive to the next.
Yeah,
a lot
you
of times,
leave.
right?
The most efficient way is to pack up, get everything packed up, and head to the next town. And then, depending on how much money the tour has, you'll either check into a hotel that morning, or a lot of people, even if we had hotels, chose to just sleep in the bus, because once you fall asleep, it's kind of comfortable, and especially if the thing
Yeah.
stops and the generator just keeps going.
Yeah, it's white,
it's
kinda
really nice
noise.
humming
Yeah.
that will. Sometimes you'll do that and they'll get a day room, like maybe 2 hotel rooms where you can go in and shower. A lot of the venues that you play, if you're getting into the 2,000 seaters and above, will have showers and stuff like that, which is
Yeah.
great. And then sometimes you don't need a hotel. I always preferred to have a hotel room, but a lot of people just think it's fine. They just like, I'd rather sleep on the bus. I don't really like to sleep on the bus.
Yeah, because I can see both sides of that. Because then you got to get all your shit out of the bus and go up and check in, and then like you're sort of
and it's 4 a.m.
and now you're awake, right? And there's a mini bar there, and
right. But like by the same time, I didn't have to be anywhere till 4
p.m.
p.m. Right.
Yeah.
So
right.
It can get So you could go up, get another couple hours sleep, get up, go to the gym.
Yeah.
Do a run, work on learning a foreign language. There's all these things that you could do instead of what you actually would do, which is, I don't know.
Think of all this time. What could I do?
Yeah. I'll tell you what you can't do is you can't take care of things at home.
Yeah.
You can't pay the electric bill. I mean, this back in the day, you couldn't, that was whoever you left at home doing that. And it's really hard on them.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I can't.
Do you know the song "Showman's Life"?
I don't think I do.
Yeah, Buddy. I think it's Julie I'm going to get that wrong, but Buddy Miller and his wife it's a country song, and I wish I had printed the lyrics out, but it's something. It's the saddest. I dare you to get through it without crying because you've been in that situation.
It's tough. It's awful.
Some of the lyrics are it's a hotel room. It's a lonely wife. And there's something about a fake smile in a colored light. It's incredible. Yeah. So I know exactly what you mean. So you have to find the right person who understands that you're not like a lot of people see the behind the music and they think it's a certain way. They think that it's party time. You've probably seen that meme where it's like what people think is happening and it's all parties, and then there's what's really happening. Everyone's on their phone in the dressing room. So you have to find somebody who understands what's really happening and be super supportive, right?
Yeah. And I was really fortunate with my wife, Stephanie, had unfortunately dated musicians a lot before I came along. And so
she knew.
Right? She knew what she was getting into and did it anyway. I don't know. Maybe she thought I was rich. I don't know why. But fortunately, 25 years ago, more than that, really.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it's been. But it's been a long time, and it's been very fortunate for me. And
yeah, I feel the same way.
Other things, we were talking about auditioning before, and it I don't know if how much auditioning you've ever done, but
fair amount.
It was all the time. It was all you ever did.
Yeah, not that much.
Because I wasn't known enough. People weren't doing a lot of sessions at that time in the early 90s. There weren't a ton of live drums being recorded in the early 90s.
Because of the loop thing? Because speaking of that, Alanis, you're on Ironic, right?
Yeah.
You don't come in till the chorus or something. There's a lot of loops on there is my point. That was
tons of loops, yeah.
Fake,
I got to be the guy that there were a lot of people hiring me to play with the loop after that record.
Because you could, that's great.
That
was
really
a thing.
Great.
That's great.
Okay, remind me, I got something to say about that song.
Okay, all right.
But there was one audition when I auditioned for Don Henley. Yeah. And I had met Don before when I was out with Sue. And a friend of mine was going to be his musical director 10 years. This was 10 years later. And he was putting together a band. And I called up my friend Frank. And I said, hey, I want to audition. And he was like, really? I said, yeah. And I met Don on the day of the audition. I'm dragging in my gear. Who was leaving? Greg Bissonette was packing out. His dad was his roadie, was packing out his gear. Hi, Greg. How's it going? So, you're getting kind of nervous at this. You're already nervous, right? You haven't really slept because you've been shedding like crazy. It was 13 songs.
Wow. Yeah.
And then it's not like usually auditions are at one of the 6 or 8 sort of rehearsal spaces, studios like SIR or these other places like that around LA that are just rooms for playing music and showcasing. Yeah. This one was at Sony Pictures, full soundstage, an entire soundstage, where you could shoot Star Wars in.
Yeah.
And so I roll my gear in there and hi, blah blah blah. I knew a couple of people because I'd known them. Run into him before, and here's Stan Lynch, the drummer for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Yeah.
I had actually met Stan before. He didn't remember that, of course. Stan, what are you doing? Oh, I'm checking out the drummers. And I was like, no problem. Perfect. And so we got my drums up there, got my cymbals up there, and he's, what's with this ride cymbal? Like, he immediately starts in on me. And I was like, that's my favorite cymbal.
It's vibing you out, man.
That's my K custom from 1990 that I got from...
Yeah.
I've been a Peisty guy myself, and I was like,
whatever.
But I think he might have already changed his Ojin by then. But anyway, it was just something. He was really coming at me.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, what is this? Does he hate me? And then, so I start playing, and so there's a full stage, drum riser, monitors, in-ears, everything.
Yeah.
And he's sitting on a chair down next to the floor tom off the riser. So his head is about right here. And he's 9 inches away from my elbow.
God.
And just watching, and I'm looking down at him, and he's like, yeah, or
yeah,
and like,
don't do that again.
What am I doing? I'm playing what's on the record. I'm playing, and what's more, since I had been on tour, Sue Hoffs opened for Henley.
Oh, okay.
In 91 or something, and so I had seen how the songs are supposed to be played.
That's
so
great.
I
great.
I had that advantage.
Yeah.
And he then finally we played a few times, and he gave me some advice. Said, "Don't do that. Do this instead. Don't do it." Fine. And then so I'm like completely crapping myself already, but I'm trying to act cool, and you have to, I mean,
it's game face. You got to put your game face.
That's right. And being nervous is good. But letting nerves make you do something that you don't want to do is bad, right? So just always, my advice that somebody probably gave me about auditions is always know what you want to do. Don't try and guess what they want you to do, because that's not you. So always be yourself. If you get a gig by not being yourself, then you're the wrong person for the gig, and you've gotten the wrong gig.
Yeah. Stick with the plan, right?
Just do what you exactly, and commit to it. And so then Don comes out, hey, I remember you, Rob, and starts singing, and I'm like, I'm not thinking about, I'm playing with Henley right now. I have the job, I have to do the thing, play the song. I know how the song goes. I'm good enough to play these things.
Good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
And then Lynch starts hitting me.
Oh my God.
Like hitting while I'm playing.
Oh my God.
And like Don Henley.
Did Don see that? Or?
No, because he's hidden. I don't even know if Don knew that Lynch was.
Oh my God.
I don't know if Don knew that Stan was back there.
Wow.
And he thought it was hilarious. I thought it was hilarious, and I just never gave up. I never let him rattle me, and I started talking shit back to him.
Nice.
And so that was like day one. I had to keep coming back. For like, it was almost 2 weeks. I came back every day because they had to find a bass player. But they kept calling me, so I was like, this is pretty good sign.
It's a good sign, yeah.
And we were playing the song Heart of the Matter. Do you know the big slow song? And he played it live. He played it even slower. Oh, it's already unbelievably slow. And there's no eighth note except
He's
for the
great
hand.
at playing those kind of beats. Super slow, sparse.
Yeah.
Like that is really hard. Yeah.
And the doom, 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 every bar. Doom, 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 doom. Right? Yeah. So, so eighth notes on the hi-hat, 2 and 4, doom, doom, boom, boom. And then when it goes to the chorus, it's an overdub ride cymbal, quarter notes.
Yeah.
But the hi-hat playing eighth notes is still going, and the doom, doom, blue, blue is still going.
So you got 3 hands now? What are you going to do?
I just went to the ride because I'd seen the guy play it before. I'd seen Armand Grimaldi, who was a great drummer. I'd seen him play it before. Stan was like, oh. Like, what? I'm like, what? He's like, I mean, it'd be great, if you could keep the hi-hat going when you're playing that ride. And I was like, yeah, it'd be great if I could, had 3 hands. I could easily do that. And he was like, yeah, well, whatever. And like, so I went home that night and I figured it out. I was able to I figured out a way to keep the hi-hat going even when I did the doop, doop, bloop, bloop.
Yeah. Were you
In the
switching
verse?
back
Yeah.
left
I just
hand?
started playing eighth notes with my left hand and 2 and 4. And so the next day I came back down to Culver City and played the thing. And I didn't say anything. I just waited until we played Heart of the Matter. And we got to the chorus and I played the thing and I just looked down at him and he gave me the, all right. And that might have been it. That might have been it. Anyway, Stan's watching, I know. He's really a nice guy. And he was really funny though. I mean, he really is an edgy dude, but he's super warm. And once he produced that live video, that DVD. Stan produced the sound for that.
Okay, well.
He's really great. Just really super talented and a hero of mine. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said you had a story about ironic.
Oh yeah.
Is it that a lot of the things that she says are not ironic?
No.
Is that no?
Well, that's part of it.
Yeah.
So we moved here in 2008. My daughter was starting middle school. We moved back here from California, my wife and my daughter.
2008.
Yeah, 2008.
Yeah, I remember when you came back. That was and all the session gigs disappeared. Rob comes back. Damn it.
When I left, there were 2 drummers in this town. When I came back, everybody's a drummer, and everybody was better than me.
But it's because there was opportunity, Rob.
Well, the drummers were not that great when I left, and suddenly I come back, it's like Drumtown.
It is. It's because you started Drumtown, you and Morgan Davis.
Sure. And so my kid starts Chapel Hill High School. She was in English, and her English teacher used that song as an example of what irony isn't.
Isn't that ironic?
Right. I think so. Yeah. And my daughter came home that day. She was in 8th grade, maybe 8th grade, and she told me that story. And I was like, well, did you tell her that your dad played drums on that song?
Yeah, that's my dad on that part. After the loops, that's the real drums coming in.
So and the eye rolling from my child was deafening. Like I could have.
You could see it coming.
Did I? Yeah, Dad. It's like I asked her if she, took off her pants or it had the nightmare of going to school in your underwear, right? The idea of her saying my dad played on that was like so far from her reality.
Oh, wow.
And like, I'm thinking that was probably worth half a letter grade.
Yeah. I mean, I would have used that.
This is how the world works.
Yeah, exactly. You've already, it's who you know. Like, by the way.
Exactly.
You're
and
right.
you think you're writing. She's a writer now, but.
Oh, is she?
Yeah. But like, you think you're a good enough writer that you're getting an A, you better use Pops.
That's right. Yeah.
So there it is. Like all this work, all of this, whatever I've accomplished dies with me.
Yeah. Let's see. So we talked about your music stuff. Let's talk about what you're doing now musically. So you sent me a bunch of really great videos, and I don't even know if this could be a 4-hour long video. Rob.
Let's hope not.
The hardest part, yeah, exactly. We're way past 13 minutes now. You know that?
Great, then no one's watching.
Right. So and we can cuss. No, but so you sent me this Connells song that you wanted to talk about. It's a beautiful song.
Isn't that?
Yeah.
Isn't that a great song? That's from I've been playing with the Connells since. Somebody said it was 2012.
Let's ask Chris. Right? Didn't Chris play before you?
Yeah. Chris called
Siegel?
me and said,
No. Chris
Stevenson.
Siegel's another Chris. Though.
Oh, I don't know
Chris Stevenson.
Siegel. Yeah. Chris called me because he needed to get out of the band because he was joining a band that was going to be working too much.
Yeah.
And so thanks, Chris. And I've known the Connells since we were children, and they've I moved, as we said, in '88, and then all through the '90s, the Connells were giant. Like, I missed all of that. Like, I heard about it, but I wasn't aware of it like people around here might have been. They were still the guys that, nothing changed in Chapel Hill when I left, as far as I knew.
Right.
And, but yeah, it was, Peel is one of the great Peel Wimberly is one of the great drummers that the state has produced, and so learning his parts and stuff like that has been great and fun. But we did this record a couple of years ago called Stedman's Wake, their first record in I think 20 years. And for one of the days recording, we were recording at Overdub Lane in Durham.
Mm-hmm.
John Plymel was producing and engineering. And David Connell, the bass player, couldn't be there. He had to do something with his kids in school. Nothing bad. It was everything was good. But this session was already booked, and so we were like, well, why don't we just get Robert Sledge to come down and play, and just so we can get some rhythm tracks done.
Yeah.
And he was, of course, fine with that. And he and Robert got together, and they talked about, this is what David would play on this song. But there was this one song that we had never heard before called Song for Duncan. And we had finished, and Mike said, let's just work on this thing. Nobody had ever heard it. And he just started playing it in the room. And we made up a song to go with it, which is the best.
That's really old school. That's right. I mean, that's organic.
You don't get enough time. These days, you don't get the opportunity to do that as much. Yeah. You can work it out in the rehearsal room, which is the next best thing.
Yeah.
But you still have to remember what you played in the rehearsal room.
And recreate it later, right?
If they're recording it, you don't have to remember anything.
Yeah.
You are completely free to play anything. I only have to get to the end of the song with whatever it is that I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
So we started playing this thing, and Robert and I were trying to think of, tried a few things. I knew it needed to be quiet. I thought it probably needed to be jazzy.
Yeah.
And so I was playing, I switched out my ride cymbal, and I was playing a jazzy pattern, and that wasn't working. And John Plymel said, why don't you play something like Nearly Africa, which is a song by XTC. John and I are both mad XTC fans.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way. Like, completely different feel. The song, the angular Andy Partridge kind of song that he was referring to, and then this super legato, somber. But so I played that version of the drum beat for Nearly Africa, and it totally worked. And I started playing that. Robert, of course, starts playing with me immediately, and Mike started playing differently and singing differently because now we had a thing, and we completely created that song right there, and it was super fun. I'm really proud of the drum sounds.
Yeah.
On that whole record, I think John did that record. My drums sound more like my drums than any record that I've ever played.
Oh, it's a huge compliment.
Well, he's really good.
John is great.
Yeah. But I also want you to note that I kept 2 and 4 going on the hi-hat the whole time for that song. I don't know if you caught that or not.
Of course I did. Yeah. Well, I listened to it like 20 times.
Go back and listen to it.
Steady on, already gone, mostly. Open-eyed and open-armed, mostly. Please be even, please be able, please be everything you've got. Please be steady, please be stable, please be everything I'm not. Will you sleep all night, will you dream all day, will you reach up high and stow your stars away? run on fumes, and you roll on rails, and you harvest hope when everything else fails.
Now, what I like about it is that I didn't catch the XTC thing because I wasn't. It's not in my world. But
You wouldn't.
well,
it doesn't
and-
sound like
well, you know what it reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of you too, because with the snares off, like he did a lot of those drummy, like Tom kind of rolling beats.
tribal, they called
Yeah,
it back
exactly.
then.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe I got from it,
Yeah.
which is cool. Which was really hard for me to do because I grew up, with Stuart Copeland. I think you even said. I've got his book back there, by the way. You even said that everyone played different after Stuart Copeland came around, right? He just, oh my God, just opened up a whole. And so his snare sound, I was just so all about that 2 and 4, the snare sound. The turning off the snares never came to my mind until I started listening to U2, and I'm like, oh, that's a cool sound too. Like,
Yeah.
that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So speaking of those kind of beats, Pressure Boys was the first band that I saw you with, and you guys were playing the Teen Center. Do you remember the Teen Center?
Underneath the
Post office?
underneath the post office.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom used to work there.
Oh my God. on Henderson Street and East Franklin.
Yeah.
And
Right down the street from Steve Aiken's house.
okay. So we would one of the things we would do as young rowdy kids is go uptown, right? It was not downtown because you had to go it was uptown, uptown Chapel Hill. And we would go there and we would start at the Teen Center and then we'd go down to the Barrel of Fun, maybe to the Pump House, all the way at the end, arcades, for those of you who don't know. And then we'd come back to the Teen Center and our parents would pick us up, right? Well, we did that this one time and I'm sorry that we went out because we came back in. You guys were almost done. Pressure Boys were playing at the Teen Center. And I remember walking down that hall and it's like, it must have been a bomb shelter or something. It just seemed like really mostly underground.
Yeah. It might have been a fallout shelter originally.
Yeah. And you guys were playing "Look to These Boys."
Oh yeah,
right. And I could hear it coming down, and my memory is probably totally off, but I kind of remember walking in to the side of you guys, and you guys were looking at us like, "Where have you guys been? Like just showing up, like." And you were playing that beat, and I just was like, "Man, that's cool." I hadn't heard that beat, and I went back home. I lived in Glen Lennox.
Yeah.
Beth Boylan.
Yeah, sure.
And Ethan is her younger brother. He had a different name, and I'm not going to divulge his nickname, but he changed. Now he's Ethan. He said to me weeks later, "Hey, my sister wants to know if you've learned that Pressure Boys song yet, because you're just playing it all the time." I didn't realize they could hear my drums. They were on another street,
and she could figure out from the drum beat
exactly
what song it was.
Which means I kind of got it right.
Yeah,
then,
you must
right?
have. You must have nailed it or fooled her. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my first experience with you guys and your drumming, and that was a fun band.
That was a fun band. That was another lightning strike, like fortunate thing that happened to me because I was only 15 when that thing started, and I thought, I'd never really been in a band before. I'd never really played rock music before. Like, I was really not into popular music at all as a kid. My brothers kind of were, but
You have older brothers?
I have 2 older brothers, yeah. Both of them musicians.
Yeah.
My mom was very insistent that we learn how to play an instrument and take it seriously.
That's my mom's the same way.
Yeah. It's thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
I really liked classical music. I liked weird music. When the movie The Sting came out, I really got into ragtime for a while.
That's
and
cool.
Deliverance came out, I really got into bluegrass for a while. And I felt like, I'm not exactly sure why, but I felt like pop music was kind of cheating.
Yeah.
It was I don't know if this is true or not. I'm thinking that pop songs are like super repetitive and they're super catchy.
It's a formula. They figured out the formula.
Yeah,
It's sort of like
it's like chocolate. It's like when you go to a restaurant and you see the desserts. It's like we've got this, we've got this, and we've got this. We got our most popular one, which is a chocolate brownie that's got chocolate injected into it, and then we pour chocolate on top of it. And it's like they know you're going to buy that because most people are addicted to chocolate, right? So I feel like maybe that's the reason I didn't really love pop music. I listened to it all the time. It was always on.
Yeah.
And AM radio was kind of great back then. You could hear Steely Dan. You could hear Creedence.
The long versions of all the songs.
Well, AM. But then also the FM, you could hear the long versions.
Oh, okay. Right.
But it wasn't until I saw the specials on Saturday Night Live that even like new wave and punk, I hadn't really paid that much attention to it. I really liked reggae.
Yeah.
And then I saw those guys, and my brother Bill and I were watching, and we were like, wait, you can do that?
Yeah.
That you could do that if you wanted to? I had the same experience when I listened to My Life in the Bush of Ghosts, David Byrne and Brian Eno. I was like, that's allowed?
Yeah.
Like, they were completely breaking all the rules. As far as I knew, the specials were completely breaking new ground. Then I found out that they weren't. But that really made me think, oh, I want to get in a band and sit behind a drum set and do something. Before then, I never really thought that I didn't want to be a classical musician, but I really didn't want to be a pop guy playing covers or something like that. Just never. And I had been studying with Larry. You studied with Larry at the music. I studied with Larry at Hill Hall.
Oh, okay.
Down in the music department.
Yeah.
He was my second teacher down there. Before that was a guy named Rocky. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, Larry was my first drum teacher.
He was in college when I met him.
Was he really?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah, I think it was Music Loft is where I would have taught, or maybe B&B. Do you remember B? Or was he there? I don't remember. Yeah, Larry Duckworth. Yeah. Boy, I heard a lot about you from. Actually, Larry was really cool. Larry was very supportive about like, this is you. You know, he wasn't always saying like you should go see Rob or like everyone else was doing, but Larry was very focused on. I remember it. What's happening here, and he just was real positive.
What's happening here
with me and you in this room, not like. Do you know what I mean? Outside.
Yeah.
I mean, he would reference bands and stuff, but he seemed to be really focused on what was happening there, which was great. I thought.
Larry is a giant.
Yeah.
Not physically, but
right. Anything else you want to talk about?
I wonder what we didn't talk about. There are just 100,000 little stories where funny things happen, but I can't. Yeah. Oh, I wanted to say something about Edward T. Butler.
Sure. Yeah.
I know that Ed was on the show, and Ed is an important guy in your life, and important in the music business in this little town we call blah, blah, blah. Ed was the first person I lived with after my mom.
Oh, wow.
When my mom kicked me out because I wasn't going to go to college, a friend of mine said, oh, I'm moving. You could take my place. And that guy's name was Wes Armstrong, and he lived with Ed. I moved into that place on 210 Short Street, lived there for a couple of years, and I didn't know shit about anything. I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I never went to college. I never lived in a dorm. I never lived anywhere in my mom's house.
Right.
And she is also from Baltimore. So there's a thing.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting.
But like Ed, it was so, imagine of all the people you could pick in the world to fall into the home of.
Yeah.
I mean, Ed would rise to the top, man.
Yeah.
And he had this beautiful stereo with 1 million records, all of them good. Most of them I had never heard because I wasn't really. And he turned me on to so much, like Weather Report besides Heavy Weather.
Right. The deep cuts.
Yeah. And so many great drummers. He played Ry Cooder's jazz album for me, which is still one of a super important record to me. And just, I just got to hang out with Ed after he got home from work.
Yeah, that's great.
It was really great. It's really great.
ETB.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Rob Ladd, the episode's name is The Drummer's Drummer. Okay, you're the drummer's drummer.
Oh, but I get to name the thing.
You get to name the.
Okay, how about this? All right, I'm going to try and get this quick. I'm going to try and say this quick. I just thought of it while I was talking about Ed. My daughter. Have you ever met my daughter?
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say don't bother, but When I first mentioned you to her, I said something like, "Oh, I'm going to see my friend Evans play drums," and she was like, "Oh, they have 2 drummers?" And I was like, "No, Evans is just one person." She was like, "You mean Evan?" "No, Evans is his name." And she was like, "Okay, well, I guess tell him hi." And since then, every time I mention you,
That's funny.
yeah, right. But now I'm thinking about it. You were on the they them thing before anybody, so
Yeah,
way to go, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to call the studio Evans's apostrophes.
Oh, that's good.
Just
that's
thought of
good.
that.
That's great.
Evans's apostrophes.
Just like that, magic happens. Rob Ladd, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, man.
It's really
And this is
a
really
pleasure.
fun and super cool, and it's of course always great to hang out with you.
Yeah,
and,
you too.
I hope to see you playing the drums out there soon.
I know. I need to be doing it.
Yeah,
soon.
come on now.
I know. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And cut.
Bye, everybody.